Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World, this time Hammond Collection release. Seems like everything lately has been Rebirth, but this time we've got a new Hammond Collection figure, and as you can see, it is the Stygimoloch. It's one that many people have been quite excited about, and actually, honestly, like looking at it here in person, it is so much better in person, from what I can see so far anyway, than, the original images we had seen of it led me to believe. You can see, as far as the packaging goes, you have the Hammond Collection Stygimoloch, as well as a very cool shot of the dinosaur right there, and then True FX. It seems like all of the newer Hammond Collection stuff is kind of like this same True FX packaging for the most part. You can also see the Jurassic World logo up there. If you come to the side, you can see again that this is a Fallen Kingdom dinosaur, and you've got some information here on the Stygimoloch. On the opposing side, the Hammond Collection, and then a little bit more of the dino. And then here on the back, just a few kind of glamour shots of the Stygimoloch. And down here, you can see all of the other figures that are out currently for this wave, all of which will be up for review here on the channel very soon. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So here is our Hammond Collection Stygimoloch now out of the packaging, and honestly looking really, really nice. I think they, as a whole, did a great job on this one from what I can see so far. And I've always felt like the Mattel Stygimolochs were really nicely done, but this is by far the best version that they have released to date. And that's, of course, my opinion, but I think most people will probably agree with me there. So starting here in the head sculpt of the Stygimoloch, you can see the skin texture looks really quite nice. We've got a good bit of variation to the types of scales, a few bumpy kind of osteoderm-like scales here in the face. You can see we have this nice reddish brown with some black there kind of patterning through here and there, as well as a light gray coming from the underside running up through the lower jaw and part of the lower part of the head of the Stygimoloch. We can also see the nostrils sculpted out, some creasing there around the eye area. The beak is sculpted quite nicely and painted with a dark brownish tone. We do have articulation in the beak. It can open pretty wide, which you can see, and there's also a tongue in there and a pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth, which does look quite nice. And that's how it looks once it is fully closed. So there's a little gap there, but still looks pretty good. You can see that little bump there on the top of the snout, also painted with the same dark brown that we have for the beak, and given a nice satin shine. As you move into the eye area, in pretty much typical Mattel fashion, the eyes don't really look that great. The glass eyes still, for some reason, aren't really working perfectly. I think this one's okay. I don't know how good it's showing up on camera, but here in person, like, I can see the pupil and stuff. It just looks a little bit weird. Doesn't really look near as crisp as it probably should, or near as crisp as the promo images kind of lead us to believe that it will. You can see moving up here into the top of the head, of course, as far as the dome area of the Stygimoloch, we have this nice light tone. There's also a brown dry brushing, which I like, because again, it just adds a little variation of color up here, but also helps to highlight the detail, especially when it comes to the spikes here leading out of the back of the head, which do look really good, except for this one that's kind of warped and bent upward. But other than that, it looks pretty good. As you move back here into the neck, you can see you do have a nice swivel area of articulation for the Stygimoloch. And do we have any up and down in that spot? Seems like maybe a little bit, but not a whole lot. So not really a whole lot outside of the swivel, just a little bit of mobility. But the good thing is right here in the neck, you can put the head down. So you can see a little bit of mobility right there, giving us the ability to, again, have like that, head butting action feature. But this area goes up and down pretty nicely, and of course can also swivel, which you can see right there, and that could probably continue to swivel all the way around. Yep, definitely. So that, again, has some pretty decent mobility right there for the Stygimoloch, and this allows you to give, again, some nice, like, turns in the head and stuff, which is really quite nice. Like, that's a pretty sharp turn in the head and neck, and it works pretty smoothly as far as the Stygimoloch goes. So definitely nicely done. This might be another of those instances where I don't want to pull it too hard, but it feels like we should be able to go down a little further in this spot. I just feel like there should be a little bit more mobility right there, but it might be one of those instances of maybe it just needs to be warmed up and then it'll get moving. But as of right now, I don't have any really like major up and down movement, just a little wiggle room in that area of the neck. But as you move back into the back of the neck, though, you can see again the detail looks really good. You've got some osteoderms and stuff popping up, as well as like your casual standard scales. We have some darker patterning that picks up in the back of the neck, and we continue to have that light gray moving down along the underside of the throat of the dinosaur. As we move down into the body, the skin texture continues to still look really good. Again, some bumpier scales and osteoderms as you move up higher into the back. The patterning continues to still be quite frequent as you move through the body. Again, you have like a dark gray kind of patterning that moves through most of the upper side of the dinosaur and kind of stripes down into the side. As you lead down into the arms, one thing I really like is you can see that light gray actually travels a little bit there into the back of the arms, which was a nice touch, kind of like designs up into the back of the arm. As far as the articulation goes, of course, forward and back, standard stuff there, also out away from the body. And then you have elbow articulation, which can go forward and back and can also swivel, which works pretty decently. As you move down into the hands, my camera doesn't want to focus on them. There you go. Almost for a second there, you can see it. You can see the hand sculpt looks pretty good. You've got some scoots moving down the fingers. The claws are sculpted nicely, but sadly unpainted. And I feel like that's almost inexcusable for a Hammond collection release. They should always have all of the claws painted on any Hammond collection figure. But as you move back into, actually before I even go back into the thigh, you can see the transition is really quite nice and smooth down to the light gray of the underbelly of the Stygimoloch as well. But as you move back into the rear leg, you can see again the detail continues to look really nice, really crisp. Some more osteoderms, some more nice looking scales, as well as more of that darker patterning and that grayish tone in the back of the thigh. The musculature is very nicely displayed. As you move down through the leg, you can see the calf muscle. You can also see that that light gray actually runs all the way down through the back of the leg, disappears as you move into the foot pretty abruptly, so it's not super smooth, but it is nice to see that coloration lead all the way down, which looks really good. We again have some nice articulation, I would imagine, in the leg. Yep, forward and back. Really, really, really smooth. You also have the ability to go out and away from the body and back in. Then you've got knee articulation, forward and back, and can swivel. And then one more spot down here in the ankle, forward and back, and again can swivel, which allows you the ability to really display your Stygimoloch in pretty much any and every pose you could possibly imagine when it comes to those legs. Moving down into the foot sculpt, you can see some scoots down the front of the toes, as well as the claws, again sculpted nicely and painted with a dark gray, similar to the darker tone we have here, but a little bit darker, I would say. As you move down, they also have a nice satin shine to them, which is a huge plus. However, in typical Mattel fashion, the dew claws back here are sculpted but unpainted, because why would they ever be painted? But as you move back up into the tail, you can see again leading out, we've got one last area of articulation. Left, right, up, down. The standard area of articulation can also swivel. And again, it is a wire tail, so it has some nice maneuverability with that aspect. Again, you can bend it pretty much any way you would like. You've got a few skin wrinkles here leading off of the back of the dinosaur as you lead up into the tail. And we see the patterning run all the way out into the tail, ending fairly close to the tip, but not the entire way. But it does look really nice as far as that goes. Just unfortunate that the light tone here ends as you lead up into the tail. It would have just really been nice to see it go the entire way out into the tail. And of course, you're going to see the same thing again for the opposing side. No real differences from side to side. So definitely a really nice looking figure. And I'm going to go ahead and have to reposition that foot so I can get it standing and then reposition the camera. So as far as a size goes, for a length from the snout to the tail, about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. For a height, the highest point in the position it's currently in to the top of that horn is just a little over 3 3/4 inches, or a hair shy of 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our Stygimoloch, and you can see again, it's pretty much the exact size range you would expect it to be in, especially if you are familiar with the Stygimolochs from the Mattel line. And to show you that this one is fairly similar in size to the others, here is the battle damaged Stygimoloch from Mattel, and as you can see, they are roughly the same size. I think the biggest difference would be a little bit more tail length on the Hammond collection version, but not by a whole lot. But for another comparison, I also decided to bring in a Dracorex from Mattel, because why the heck not, just for another comparison next to the Stygimoloch. And then for some random Hammond collection comparisons, here is the Dimetrodon, which we can see is a little bit smaller. We've also got the young T-Rex, which as well is a bit smaller than the Stygimoloch. The Hammond collection Pyroraptor, which is just a little bit longer than our Stygimoloch. A Troceraptor Ghost, which is pretty much the exact same situation, again just a little bit longer, but definitely a little more body mass on the Stygimoloch. And then we've got ourselves a Hammond collection Velociraptor next to the Stygimoloch, which you can see again just a little bit more body mass on the Stygimoloch. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Hammond collection Stygimoloch figure is definitely quite nice, and honestly it's probably one of the nicest Hammond collection figures as far as like the sculpt and paint goes that we've seen in quite some time, especially when it comes to screen accuracy. I feel like they absolutely nailed it, and this one would be a fun one to potentially repaint and, you know, maybe paint over the glass eyes, because so far I'm just not a huge fan of the glass eyes. And it's sad because like the glass eyes definitely worked a little nicer on some of the more recent figures, but I feel like this one almost backtracks a little as far as how effective they look. The sculpt is absolutely gorgeous, the fine detail looks fantastic, it's extremely crisp and impressive the entire way through, and overall again is really quite screen accurate. The paintwork is really nicely done. I love the fact that they have patterning from head to tail, so it would have been nice to see a little bit more of that lighter tone on the underside run out into the tail, but it's not half bad as far as that goes. Love the dry brushing they've used up there on the spikes in the back of the head and everything. I wish they painted the claws and the hands, but it is what it is, I guess. And again, I wish the eyes were a little bit better, but you know, I guess it could be worse. I don't know if it could be a lot worse as far as the eyes on this one goes, but definitely could be a little bit worse. And of course you do have some articulation, and the articulation is really, really nice, very smooth and crisp pretty much the entire way through. So if you are interested in this, these are beginning to show up at Targets here in the United States. Outside of the United States, I'm not entirely positive. I know it was available for pre-order on Amazon UK at one point, so maybe you can grab it there if you are in the United Kingdom, but hopefully everybody has a chance to grab this because it's definitely a really cool figure worth adding to any Hammond collection. So if you are interested, again, check your local Target or wherever you may purchase Hammond collection stuff, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.